Welcome to the Grove School of Engineering Town Hall meeting with regards to the Fall 2020 grading policy. I would like to introduce our distinguished Dean, the Interim Dean of the Grove School of Engineering, Professor Alex Kouzes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hope that the semester went well and everybody's doing well, health and your families as well. I know we've come to a close. And as Rollins said, today's purpose is to try to shed light on the grading policy that's in place and try to help you make the right decisions, guide you towards making the right decisions with regard to the grading policy. Rollins, thank you.
You're welcome. Before we continue, I would just like to mention that with us today is also our Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, Dr. Adi Walser, as well as some of our chairs of our departments. I see Professor Schaffler is here, the chair of the Biomedical Engineering Department, Professor Faradan Dalali, the chair of the Mechanical Engineering Department, Professor Beth Withig, the chair of the Civil Engineering Department, Professor Roger Dawsonville, the chair of the Electrical Engineering Department, Professor Ilona Kreshmer, the chair of the Chemical Engineering Department, and I'm sure that the other chairs will join us or they are already in the room, as well as some of your general advisors at the undergraduate level, and there will also be some faculty members and staff joining us. So without any further delay, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Adi Walser, the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs for our undergraduate and graduate school, Dean Adi Walser.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. I really would like to just say that I'm just really proud of our school in terms of our students and the way that they've responded to this pandemic and to all the challenges that have been before us. Very much just in awe of our advisors and our faculty and our deans and administrators and our chairs, all of us sort of coming together to sort of figure out a way how to address this pandemic. Before I get to the real business at hand, I just really want to say to you that one of the things that the Grove School has really done really well is have adapted to this changing environment that we find ourselves in. And that is a key component of being a good engineer, being able to go to that plan B, C, and D whenever a challenge arises. And I think it's been quite extraordinary. As a result of this pandemic and us having to sort of shift to this new normal, where we have a number of Zoom meetings, I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of our undergraduate and graduate students in ways that I might not have been able to before. And it's been just in awe of the way that each of you have not only navigate your own sort of challenges, but also help your fellow student and making them and helping them to become successful. And I just think that that really cannot go on understated. It's been truly extraordinary. Those challenges are still going on. And today's meeting has been really about trying to communicate with you in the best way that we know how. We, meaning the School of Engineering, meaning your faculty, your chairs, your administrators, your advisors, all those people who care about you, on how can we navigate regarding this grading policy. We do want to apologize for the lateness of this, but we want to try to understand as much of this as we could and to try to put this in as concise a way as we could in order to convey where we are and where we plan to be and how are we going to handle this. I'm going to tell you right up front that the situation is fluid, which you've already noticed. There's been a great deal of discussion about the flexible grading policy that's been implemented, and there have been numerous variations of that. I want to press upon you that your chairs, your program directors, the deans, your advisors all have been in consultation with each other, working on ways to figure out how best to, one, serve you, to protect you, and to support you as we sort of move through this challenging times. And so to get down to the business at hand, there are basically two policies that we're contending with. The first policy is to credit, no credit, which was mandated by the Chancellor, by CUNY for spring 2020, and now extended to fall 2020. The second policy is to pass no credit policy. And so we really want to talk about how those two things work. The credit, no credit policy is one that every student can have almost every course a student can take advantage for their courses, except for those courses that are exempted from that policy. And I'll get to those exempted courses and how those will be handled. For the credit, no credit, how do you take advantage of that? As a student, you'll be allowed to take advantage of those of that policy once your grade for your course has been submitted. You don't like the grade? You can then apply through CUNY first. There should be an indication next to the course that will allow you to invoke the credit, no credit. The way that that works, that if your grade is an F, you will get no credit. So that the key thing here in both those policies is to protect your GPA, is to take into consideration all the challenges that everyone has faced during this pandemic, and to protect it. The second portion of that, in the case of the credit, is to allow students to sort of more or less move on and deal with some of the other challenges that sort of come along being a student, whether it's financial aid, whether your visa status, and all those other sorts of things where this might come into play. And so with the credit, no credit, you simply check off that, and then you sort of move on. Now we move on to the situation concerning exempted courses. Those exempted courses, then you're allowed to use what they call pass no credit. This is somewhat unusual for the Grove School of Engineering, because in the School of Engineering, we have no such policy. And so all of this is actually rather new, where in the College of Liberal Arts and Science, such policies already exist. In those cases, for those courses which there is a minimum grade requirement, such as a C minimum, for example, if we were to say Calculus 201, for School of Engineering students, Calculus 201 has a C minimum. You can use the pass no credit if you as a student has received a grade of C or higher. Anything less, then that would be no credit. And so what I'll do is I'll share a slide that sort of exemplifies this for you. Hopefully you can see that. This is for our undergraduate students. On the left side of the two columns, you'll have exempted courses. That means courses that are not under the credit, no credit policy, and therefore would fall under the pass, no credit policy. And then on the right side, you have non-exempted courses, which would fall under the auspices of the credit, no credit policy. You'll see for fall 2020, courses in the curriculum that requires a C minimum grade. And they give an example of, say, chemistry course, except for courses like chemistry courses and physics. You'll have up to 16 credits over which you're able to use that during the lifetime of here at the college as an undergraduate. And the process for doing that is a student submits a form for, for the exempted courses, my apologies. For the exempted courses, that's for the pass no credit, that's on the left. You would submit a form to your general advisor. If you're, say, for example, an electrical engineer, that would be Mr. Boren. If the advisor would then check to see whether or not you received a C or better. If you received a C or better, then the P would be submitted to the advisor and to the chair, and then off to the registrar's office, and then you would get credit for that. For those courses that are non-exempted, that's on the right side, that's for credit, no credit condition. That's strictly up to you. And we just recently got a notice about the deadline. And Rollins, if you can remind me what the deadline is in order to take advantage of these flexible grading policy. You're muted.
I believe it's, I'll confirm, but it's December the 24th to January the 12th.
Okay, thank you. So that would be the timeline of which you can invoke this. Now, there has not been a lot of discussion, if we have any of our graduate students on the on this Zoom meeting. There has not been a lot of discussion about that. Each of the programs have been working on that sort of individually. I mean, each of the schools. In the School of Engineering, we've exempted basically all of the graduate courses from the credit, no credit, which means that they would be eligible for the pass, no credit policy. And in that case, they will be limited to one course, simply because in the master's degree program in particular, there are only 10 courses. And so one course would count really as just 10% of the program. And that process would be, the graduate student would submit their request to the graduate office, within that deadline period. And then we would be responsible in the graduate office to see that through. Now, I do want to say to all of you is that it's real important that you speak with your advisor And because this has actually been quite fluid in terms of the policy and also the different possible scenarios that will crop up. We don't have all the answers to a lot of those questions because we'll have to kind of see as these things sort of flow out. But we are sure of one thing, that we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that you're successful here in the Grove School, and that whatever has occurred, that we can make sure that you're able to move on to that next level and be prepared to be successful on that next level. And so I think at this point, we'll open it up for any questions that our students might have. And I'm sure there are many. And I'll be looking forward to, yes, Mitch?
Yeah, thank you. Just a clarification on the physics courses. Physics 207 and Physics 208 are exempted, I believe.
Yes.
Which is what, okay. Higher level physics courses may be at a different credit, no credit. But for all of our students who take Intro to Physics, University Physics, those courses must be taken. They must be taken either for letter grade or PNC. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but like I said, it's been fluid. But I thank you for that clarification, because it goes back to the department.
Right. So, and that means when students check on CUNY First, the credit, no credit option for them box is not going to be there for them.
It's not going to be there, right? And actually, I think that's a good point, Professor Schaffler, that students should be aware that you'll know if the course is exempted or not, because if you go to CUNY First and you look up the course, if it doesn't have that credit, no credit box there, then it's more than likely an exempted course. Yes, Professor Kretschmer and then Professor Wittig.
Professor Kretschmer has put out the list on the chat.
I was just going to say, the exempted courses, there's a list, and I just put it in the chat, so you can check. We found that a couple of our technical electives were put on, like math electives were put on the exempt list. And so the minimum grade for P and C, I believe, is D, not a C, because we don't have a minimum requirement for those courses.
Right. And this is why it's important really to really speak with your advisor. It is very challenging to develop a single policy that they're going to cover all scenarios. And, as I was saying earlier, a lot of this is very fluid. And even the updating of the list, there may have been some courses that have been omitted. The School of Engineering was really brought into this maybe about 2 weeks ago, and that will account for some of the reasons as to why we're a little bit late in terms of getting this information out to you, and also developing at least a policy that will help get you through this process. Any more questions from our staff or administration or dean?
I think they should look at the list closer to the 24th, just so that they can be assured that that list is the finalized list. Because even though it's posted right now as of today, please bear in mind that that list might be fluid until the 24th.
I think that's an excellent point.
There are questions on the chat from the students also.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Okay, I see one that says, you want to read it?
I'll ask the questions if you want.
Yeah, please.
How does the credit, no credit affect when pursuing a master's or PhD degree?
Well, preferably, it would be great to see an actual grade. At least the understanding of the policy that we have, that is transferable, but being transferable and satisfying the requirement for admission are not necessarily the same thing. And that is one of the challenges with the credit, no credit, where the course might transfer in, it may not satisfy the requirement for the degree. Case in point, if you have, let's say, the credit, no credit, the grade that you received, or the most it could be is possibly a C, chances are. And if one were to calculate your GPA based on that, or even the one that's that you have, or let's say your GPA is slightly below that, that would not help you make the case. So it would actually be on a case-by-case basis as we sort of take a look at this. And this is one of these sort of unknown consequences of this. And the other question is, what happens if you want to transfer to a school that's outside of CUNY? How would they respond to that? And so I would really make the strong recommendation that, you do your best, get the best grade that you can, and then go with that. That I would only use the credit, no credit policy if I just had no other choice. Yes, Professor
When,
Chaplin? Oh, I'm sorry.
when transferring to other schools.
I think Professor Chaplin wanted to add something to
Oh,
it.
sorry, Professor Chaplin.
All right. Thank you. And that question was also with regard to applying to master's or PhD programs. I want to emphasize what Dean Walser said, which is your goal for getting into graduate school is still get the best GPA possible. So, you know, if it's an engineering course, we encourage you to distinguish yourselves because if you're headed towards graduate school, we want you to be successful and we want you to be highly competitive.
I just want to add one other thing. What the CR in the past does, it, you know, just think, put yourselves, if you're going to be an admissions officer and you're looking at this, you're not going to know what that means. And I think as an applicant, you want to remove all doubt that you're ready to take that next step. Or even if it's an employer, you know, let's say it's a critical course, you want to remove all doubt that you're ready to go on and make that next step. And so I would say that these were put in place to help, but you have to use them wisely. You can go ahead.
When transferring to other schools, does the CR grade count as a C?
We don't know. We can't speak for other schools. And that's really the point that we're making here, that interpretation may be different, even within CUNY, let alone if you go to a school outside of the CUNY system.
Someone asked, we need to hand in a form to the advisor for the PNC, correct?
Maybe you can speak to that one better.
Okay. So the PNC is different from the CRNC. So the CRNC is something that you can do on CUNY first, but the PNC, it's a form that you would be acquiring from a link on the website of the registrar, and we may send it out to our student body as well. And what it is the way we are going to proceed with that at the undergraduate level is that you would send it to the general advisor, that's the professional advisor, the staff advisor that is affiliated with your major or your academic program. That advisor will look into the form in terms of the content that you have put onto the form, look at your transcript and make a determination with you as to whether or not that P is possible or it would have to be an NC, or you can keep the letter grade. And then they will proceed with the processing of it through their chairs and through the registrar's office.
And everything is happening electronically,
Yeah,
by email, by forms moving by email.
that's our new normal.
And we will send out directions, but bear in mind that even though you'll be sending that to your general advisor, you will also be CCing our office, engineering@ccny.cuny.edu.
Okay, I think the next one under that one is, do professors have a final date to submit grades? Yes.
Always.
And we'll do our best to make sure that that happens. You want to go on to the next one, Rollins?
Spring and fall had this grading. Will this also be allowed for summer courses? I think before you jump to summer, we have to talk about spring.
Yeah.
So
We
what
don't
is
know.
the case is that we don't know as yet. They are doing it just for the fall, and there are some discussions for the spring and for the summer, but that we will only know depending on the COVID pandemic situation in the spring, because it would affect whether we have online classes or classes that are on site.
He said, how does the credit, no credit work with an F replacement? I think they mean F repeat policy. And I'm not sure what that really means. I mean, the credit, no credit applies to those courses that we're taking in spring 2020, now fall 2020. And if you got an F in that course, then it would be no credit, basically. So I'm not sure what the repeat would mean in that case. Yeah, Ilona, and I'm sorry, Professor Crutchma, and then Professor Wittig, and then Professor Schaffler.
So I think what the question is, if you have an F and you took the course a second time and now take credit, no credit, is it going to replace the F? I think that's the question that students have.
Well, the answer to that question is that grades don't really replace grades. We don't do that even in the normal and in this situation. I mean, it just would mean that you would use it for the course that you took this semester. you would have an opportunity to use it.
But can you apply the F repeat policy then to the Fs that you got in previous semesters, right? So usually if you get a B, your Fs get removed from the GPA, they stay on the transcript, but they get removed from the GPA calculation. Will that happen or not? I think that's a question.
I don't really know. I think that's a good question.
The NC will count as one of the times that you took the course, so it does replace the not the grade but the course. But the F repeat policy is not implemented for an NC or CR because NC and CR has no weighted value. It's like you pass the course to move to the next level, but you don't have the ability to utilize the grade to replace the F grade.
I would say that, you know, if the goal would be that if you want to take it, say the course a third time to use the F repeat policy, that you would be allowed to do that. I mean, and because we want you to do well. I think the point of the no credit is to do no harm. And so it sort of holds things in place.
Right. Let me just qualify do no harm as you mentioned, Dean Walser. The point of the no credit is if you get an F and it becomes a no credit, it does not count as a 0 in your GPA.
Right.
So you can't move to the next course because functions like an F.
Right.
But it means it disappears from your GPA. So it won't drag you down, but you will have to repeat the course and earn the proper credits.
And so if you did that, then you could have put in for the F repeat policy for that F that you received the first time. Hello, Professor Kretschmer?
I think the question is, what if the student got a C? Right, so if you got a C in the course, you had a previous an F.
I see.
Should you now take credit, no credit? Or if you take credit, no credit, you can no longer apply the F repeat?
I don't see how that can happen because you don't have a grade. You can't.
I know. So most likely the student should keep the C grade to be able to do the F replacement policy. Right. That's what you're saying.
Yes. I thank you for.
I think that's what.
Thank you for, and actually, this is the point that we're really making, that we're in uncharted territories. We had to really think this through, and so you got all these PhDs figuring this out. I appreciate that. No, you're absolutely correct that if the student takes a credit, there's no grade to replace it with. It doesn't impact your GPA. Both of these are GPA neutral.
Professor Wittig, I think you had a comment.
We can't hear you, even though you don't look muted. Our new normal.
I have no question. Professor Kretschmer addressed it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. That was a great question. Thank you. So we had to put that on our greatest question list.
Okay.
And actually, this is the thing. We learn a lot from our students in this regard, these different scenarios that come up with. I mean, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what are the different scenarios, but I knew I could always rely on our students to come up with those that we've never even dreamed of.
So Dean Walser, the next question is, if a student gets an incomplete, is the deadline for the incomplete grade to be changed to letter grade and then allow a CRNC request is January the 12th. So I believe what they're asking is, if the deadline to apply for the CRNC is January the 12th and the student has an incomplete grade, can they still request a CRNC grade after January the 12th in that particular situation?
I don't have a definitive, because I think for spring 2020, they extended the incomplete deadline, I believe. Can you speak to that at all? I don't know.
I know that for the spring semester, which was quite a unique semester, even though there was a deadline for CRNC, for students that had grades afterwards, they were able to change it. But as of now, I would say that we would have to get back to you all with the answer for that. I believe it's Professor Billinger's question. So we will send out something in response to that.
Yeah, because I think there was an extension of that students could use that later on for that particular semester, spring 2020. But I don't recall there being anything mentioned about that for fall 2020. So yeah.
Professor Fenster says, right now it seems that Physics 207 and Physics 208 are on the exempt list for CR list, but Chemistry 10301 is not. Will that change?
We don't know. It's up to the department. Some departments had, agreed that they should exempt and some did not for various reasons. And so, I don't think we have a definitive answer about that.
Okay. If we have withdrawn by accident, does that mean credit, no credit is no longer possible? So they were already withdrawn from their class because the deadline was extended until last week, Sunday, I believe.
Well, the
And,
accident is the thing that resonates with me, by accident. What does that mean by accident?
So if they withdrew late.
If they withdrew without knowing that there will be a grade policy change,
Oh,
I assume
okay.
that's what it means. That's by accident. So they
Oh.
withdrew before they knew that they didn't have to withdraw and could have potentially used credit, no credit.
Okay.
That's my interpretation of the question.
Okay, I'll take that. That is a prickly one because that has come up actually, that scenario, actually repeatedly. And I don't have a solution for that because it impacts many different sort of players. For example, let's say, okay, the student accidentally withdrew. How do you put them back into the course? So you have to deal with the registrar. And then if you were to put them back in the course, what does that mean in terms of the faculty member? And what was the status of the student? And so I think there are a lot of things that would sort of complicate that. And if we want, and then also about equitability, well, you might be able to do it for some versus others. Professor Wittick?
Yeah, and add to that, if they didn't take the final exam because they had already withdrawn from the course, they wouldn't necessarily have all the information that an instructor would need to determine a final grade.
Yeah, so that one, I don't think we're going to have a solution for that, unfortunately.
I could just let you know that the registrar's office for those particular situations are referring the students back to the academic affairs unit in their particular schools. The students had to put in an appeal, but before school ended, the appeal was possible to reinstate a student. At this particular stage, it has to go through a change of grade process. And as Professor Wittig said, and Dean also, that involves the faculty member having to give you a final and stuff like that, which may or may not be possible at this particular point in time. Because even though the student may have completed the majority of the semester, the finals are still there and maybe some other forms of assessment. So it will be a much more difficult task. Financially, it is also involved. A student can't just go back into a class after they've withdrawn. So there are lots of other complications involved in that process.
Just be aware, I don't know if you can, can you guys, can you hear me, Dean Walser?
Yeah, you sound well.
Okay,
Yeah,
I frozen on my screen.
Oh.
Just students, just be aware that this is an issue across the entire college right now, because the final decision about this didn't really get resolved until after the withdrawal deadline. So it's a major issue for everyone. We don't have any control over that.
Yeah. So the next question.
How does the Crnc policy apply to PhD students?
I would hope it wouldn't. We expect a lot from you guys. Yes, Professor Delali, I see him. He's raising his hand. We can't hear you. You're muted. Unless you're waving at us.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Okay. We have exempted, the PhD courses, from the Crnc, policy. So it doesn't apply, to PhD courses.
So we can move on to the next question.
So since Professor Delali was on screen, I'm just going to ask him a question that came up earlier. What happens with ME 246, the Engineering Mechanics 1 Statics, for students who are not in mechanical engineering but are taking that course? Does the PNC policy apply to those students, and what is the minimum grade for passing?
The minimum grade for passing is a C for the course. Well, the minimum grade is D, but if they want to use this course as a prerequisite to another course, then we will require them, to have a C, meaning that to have a P. If they have a P, it means it has to be a C. If not, we will not accept it.
Even if they belong to another major, not mechanical?
For example, say, suppose, you have a BME student who took statics, okay? And they want to continue to mechanics of materials, ME 330. So for ME 330, we require, ME 246 minimum C. So if they don't have the minimum C, then they cannot take the mechanics of materials, ME 330.
Okay. The next question for Dean Wilson: how does a P affect your GPA transcript, financial aid, as compared to a letter grade?
Well, the P does not affect your GPA. That's the whole point. It has no impact on it. Won't raise it, it won't lower it. Your financial aid, you really need to speak to a financial aid officer about it. We cannot stress that because they have certain policies, and that too can sometimes change. So we encourage, one, when it comes to academic issues, that you stay in close contact with your advisors. When it comes to financial aid issues, be in close contact with the finance, the advisors in the financial aid office. And when it comes to the status of your visa, to really work closely with the folks in the Office of International Students and Scholar Services. Because not only is this thing changing, but it's changing in these other areas as well. And so you really want to talk to the people who are looking at that on an everyday basis. That's how fluid it is.
And how does it affect your transcript? I mean, if a student has a P on their transcript, how does it affect the student?
Well, I mean, you see the P and you go, well, what does that mean? It means pass, and it could mean a D, it could mean a C, it could mean any of the, or anything in between those two grades, a C minus. And so in terms of, like I said, with the GPA, no impact, but it doesn't give a whole lot of information. Well, it gives some information, but it leaves it a little bit ambiguous.
Okay. Can I use the CRNC for my senior design class?
You can if it's not exempted, so yeah. But I have to tell you, the senior design class is, kind of your calling card to companies and what have you. And you really want to do well in that because that's kind of your capstone. That's showing that you pulled together everything you've learned over the last 4 or 5 years, and you really want to show off in that course.
The student asks, how do we change the grade to a CR?
We didn't answer that question there, but it's a good question. You should see that when you go into the course for CUNY First, there should be a designation that you can choose once your grade is submitted for the course.
I believe it's going to be after the deadline, Artie.
Yes.
That box will show up after the deadline for all the grades to be submitted.
Right. We hope.
How does these grades affect your QP?
They don't. I mean, once again, it's neutral. There's no number to connect it to. Like, when you calculate your GPA, a C has a number, a D has a number, and A has a number. A P does not. So it keeps things status quo. And that's really the overdriving, arching thing here, is to keep things static, called do no harm. Of course, that's loosely used here because in some cases it could be if not used appropriately.
Someone asked, what is the latest the form can be submitted? I think we said January the 12th, right? In terms of like for the PNC. They're trying to put that date as being the same date as the CRNC's date, so January the 12th. And
we're trying to keep this information on our website. One thing I would say is that, which can be confusing for students who are in professional schools like School of Architecture, Education, maybe even Sophie Davis, the School of Engineering, is that some of the information that's out really pertains more to the College of Liberal Arts and Science than those of us in professional schools. And so we're going to do our best to try to keep information on our School of Engineering website to keep you up to date as things sort of evolve.
So just to go back to the question about how late to submit the form, even though that's the deadline that the college requires the form to make the change, for our students, I would say the earlier the better. So as soon as the window begins, if you can make up your mind within those first couple of days, it would be very helpful, because usually coming closer towards the end, students flood the advisors with their request, and it may be a very short turnaround time. So the earlier you can make the decision or consult with the advisor in terms of making the decision and submit the form, it would be much, much better. Are there any known effects or repercussions of the Pnccr grades with PE professional certifications?
No, it's so new. We don't know.
But I wouldn't expect that to happen.
No.
The eligibility requirements and the testing itself, those are what those licensures are based on. And you will, if you've received a degree, therefore you will be eligible. So I wouldn't expect any fallout from that perspective.
So Edward Boren, the advisor for the electrical engineering department, says the PNC form that's currently there does not contain a placeholder for the chair's approval. So the answer to that question is that part is going to be an internal part of the process. Most likely we'll be using the same form, but what is the case is that the process that we'll be using is that even though the advisor gets the form as the first point of approval, the advisor will consult with the chair and the chair would give the final approval before it's sent to the registrar's office. So there may not be a place for the chair to sign. It's usually the advisor's signature, but the chair is going to be involved in the process for some of the majors.
Yeah, I just want to echo that, it was decided when we had our emergency P&B meeting that, you know, your advisors are right next to your chairs. You work closely with them. And so the understanding is that the chair and the advisor will be working hand in hand.
So we do have a student that's going to transfer into Grove at our town hall meeting today. So I'm going to transfer to Grove, but the pass grade, well, they wrote it in a different way, but I guess they're asking the pass grade asking whether the pass grade would be counted as a C.
No, not necessarily. It depends. I mean, you know, and this is the point that we're making, that each department can sort of decide what the passing grade would be. And that's really been a real challenge for us. I think it's safe to say that in the School of Engineering, we had hoped that the default grade for passing would be C, but unfortunately that's not the case. It could be a D, it could be a C minus. And so that's problematic. Professor Schaffler? You're muted.
All right, thank you. But Dean Walter, it's my understanding that at least in Calc 1, Calc 2, and Calc 3, physics and Bio 1, if you're taking Bio 1, those are pass no credit, where pass is defined as C or better by those departments.
That is my understanding. There's been this ongoing thing with that, but that is my understanding. But since the student didn't identify a course, I gave the most general answer to the very general question. But thank you for that specific, you know,
in terms
analysis.
of the major thing,
we're going to check.
We're going to check, yes.
Yes. Yeah, Professor Delali.
Yeah, but do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, but if they transfer from another, you know, CUNY college, we wouldn't know, you know, what the P is, even if it is a math course, you know, what it means. I think, you know, what we will do is if the student, you know, can preserve the original grade, okay? So even if it is a pass, you know, if they have an original grade, say of C, then I think, you know, some consideration should be given.
And just so the students know, math, we have so much data to support the importance of you really having good math skills and doing well in our programs. And so it's not just an issue of just moving you on, but moving you on and being sure that you're prepared to be successful. And we want to be sure that you're successful. And actually, so far, that has really panned out in terms of the number of you who have done such a great job of being retained in the School of Engineering, but also going on to graduate. That has increased over the years. And it's because of this sort of attention. So just be mindful of that.
And just one other point with regards to internal and external transfers is that we look comprehensively at your academic record. So we are not just looking at minimum standards. Minimum standards are a cutoff point, but we would look at your other grades and your trends in terms of your grades for your last couple of semesters as well. So the next question is, why is the 16 credit, what is the 16 credit limit for? Is that a total CR credit? I'm reading it like how it's written, but
okay.
like, I think they're asking why is there a limit, and is that for the CR total number of CR credits.
Okay, Professor Kreshma? Yes, sure.
Yeah, I think so. The PNC policy has a 16 credit limit, and the credit, no credit, is unlimited, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, that is correct. It's unlimited at the time that it applies.
Currently, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so this is time dependent. So for example, if you didn't use it in 2020 and you didn't use it in fall 2020, we don't know what that's going to be for spring 2021 or summer 2021 for that matter.
And in terms of for Grove, just to follow up on that question, if the limit is 16 and the student used all 16 this semester, let's just say hypothetically, even if the policy is extended for next semester, would the student still be allowed to continue to use those, not the credit, no credit, but the pass, no credit option?
No, that's limited. That is limited. The lifetime as an undergraduate. In the same way for graduate students, it's just one course.
Will the policy apply for summer 2020 grades?
We don't
So
know.
I guess asking about the past.
We don't know.
May I add something in here about the limit,
Sure.
the
sure.
pass limit? So some departments, they have a pass-fail, courses. So the 16 credit limit includes, that already, have a
Right.
pass-fail, grade
Yeah.
policy.
But like I said earlier, the School of Engineering, we only have it for very few courses, one or two courses,
Yeah.
but we don't have that policy in the School of Engineering. So this is all new to us.
Yeah.
And I don't see us moving on with this.
So the next question is, why will it matter if I get a CR grade after graduation? Why would it matter if I want to do my master's in a different university?
Anybody else want to take that? It may not matter. If you're like a 4.0 or GPA student, it may not matter. If you're on borderline, it might matter because it might put a question in people's mind. It's really thinking about what your transcript will look like to someone that doesn't know you. I mean, if you think about going to other schools, and then you can make a judgment on that. Yes, Professor Schaffler.
I think it's also likely that when you're applying to graduate school for master's or a PhD, and you're having perhaps a video interview, you're going to have credits and CRs and Ps on your transcript. And it is highly likely that somebody interviewing you can say, oh, can you tell me what the difference is? And then you'll be able to say that a P equals C or higher, okay? And that's what's specified for our required courses. So you will be able to add information if you're being interviewed. And I think that's part of something that needs to be in your mind. That said, and those of you who are applying to graduate school should, as Dean Walter said before, should be seeking the highest grades possible because that's a competitive business.
So Professor Tang has put a comment and a question into the chat, and one thing to clarify is that he said that if a person gets a grade of C or higher, that grade can be changed as CR or P. So with the CR, it can even be a D or a C minus. In terms of the CRNC policy, a person can get a D or a C minus that can be changed to a CR. But in terms of to change it to a P, it has to be a C or higher for exempted courses from the CRNC policy. So his question is, does this mean that a C minus, D or F can be changed into an NC? So can a person change their grade from if it's a C minus, D or F, and it's on the exempted list of courses, the list of exempted courses, can they change the grade of C minus, D or F to an NC grade?
We have Professor Wittick and then Professor Kreshma.
Yes, so Professor Tang teaches one of the few civil engineering courses that actually has a C minimum requirement. And so because of that, students can't opt for the no credit. Instead, their choice is for pass no credit. And they have to have a C or higher in order to get a passing grade. And even a C minus or lower would be no credit.
Mm-hmm.
So if they choose to change their letter grade, that's their only option, is for pass or no credit.
So, Professor Kreshma?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that some of the exempt courses don't have a C minimum requirement, and then a C minus and a D can also become a P. I just wanted to clarify that. because the math department put all their courses on exempt list, and some of those are technical elective in our department, but we don't have a minimum C requirement for those courses. So they're higher level math courses like 375 or 308. Those are elective courses or a statistics course, and there's no C minimum requirement. Same with 392 that Sam mentioned
Yes.
also in the chat.
So
yeah.
May I add something? You know, I think in those cases, students, you know, they may leave, you know, the letter grade, because, you know, if it is a, say they have a C minus in those courses, they won't be able to get a pass, you know, because, you know, of the policy of the math department. So if they want to transfer that course, or they want that course to be counted, they should leave, you know, the letter grade then.
Okay, we can go to the next question.
The question is, does anyone know where exactly on CUNY First the CR opt-in is?
I don't know. Anybody, because I don't look at CUNY First in that way. Anybody can speak to that? Yes, Professor Korchmar.
I think it's under, when you log in as a student, where you see your courses for the semester. You see the courses, you see the grades, and it's a column right next to the grade column. And there is like a little box, and you can opt in or not for credit, no credit. That's what it was in the spring.
Maybe what we can do is find out from the registrar's office and maybe get a screenshot of that. Or if you have that, I don't go in like a student, so I don't see the same window. Yes, Professor Schaffler?
It's also going to appear after the grading deadline. It is not currently on the CUNY First website.
Yep.
So you won't see that option right now.
The next question.
Transferring to Grove, would the pass grade be counted as a C? I think the student asked the question again. You already responded. If you take 33 credits in masters, will all the credits count towards the GPA, or will they automatically drop the lowest grade?
No, all the credits will count towards your GPA.
Yes.
Are there any known effects or repercussions of the Pnccr grades with professional license certification?
I think that
we answered that already.
Yeah, but Professor Korchmar?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, Sam made a comment, and Jennifer as well, that that last spring, like in spring 2020, the F repeat policy was actually applicable despite credit, no credit. So I don't know whether that happens this year or not.
Say that again, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So we had earlier discussion about F repeat policy and how it might not apply because credit is not a grade.
Right.
But Sam pointed out that in the spring, it was actually applicable. They were able to use the credit, no credit. So if they got a credit for a course, they were able to apply the F repeat policy to courses.
So does that mean that the course that they got an F in was like no credit or something?
No. So they got, let's say you got an F in the previous semester, then you repeat the course and you got a D and you applied the credit, no credit.
Right.
That D became a credit, but then they were still able to apply the F repeat policy for the F in the previous semester, so that no longer counted into the GPA.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got it. So it's as if it were like a C.
Yeah. So students should try to apply the F repeat policy or check with the registrar's office, because we said earlier that they should keep the grade, otherwise it would not be applicable. But I don't know the answer to the question. But
well, and this is the fluidity of this, and that actually is probably up to the registrar's office to sort of make that determination, and that's probably where it came from. And this is why I'm saying there's so many different pieces to this that are, you have so many different stakeholders, and so it's really important that particularly in those areas, specialty like financial aid, your visa, definitely talk to academic. You can come to us, and if we don't know the answer, we will certainly go and reach out to the folks who do. And in this case, I'm sure this came from the registrar's office because that's not obvious.
So this question is for Professor Kretschmer.
You answered it already. It's fine.
You answered already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
so most of the comments or responses, so I'm just going further down. So a student asks, if a grade is lower than a C, can't you get a CR grade?
That depends.
Depends on whether it's an exempt course or not.
Yeah, it depends.
And whether it's a minimum C requirement or not.
Yeah, if it's a minimum C requirement, that's not a possibility.
No.
Unless it's a chemistry course.
Unless it's about.
So there's lots of exemptions.
There's a lot of caveats here.
It's a loaded
So
question.
when you ask these open questions like this, it really is it's tough.
So check with your advisor, I guess, would be the comment here.
And the particular case, and this is why I keep saying, you know, go back. And our advisors, I just want to give a shout out to you. You guys have been extraordinary, and we'll do our best to keep you abreast of these changing policies or these morphing policies. Not so much they change, but they do morph a little bit. What's the next question?
Math 392 doesn't have any minimum passing requirement for mechanical engineering, but it is a prerequisite of some other major courses. So can a D grade be changed to a CR for Math 392 for mechanical engineering majors?
I think, you know, I heard, you know, the math department put it, you know, as an exempted course.
I think the
So,
math department has really leaned in on this. I don't know what the final outcome from, but they were very animate about, you know, C being the minimum grade.
yeah,
And
So
they've
if
been in discussion with the provost about that.
yes. So if C is the minimum grade, then they should leave, you know, the grade as is. If they have a D in mechan, they can leave it as D, you know, and then they will have no problem in continuing, you know, in our courses.
Professor Finster and then Professor Kretschmer.
So like I wrote in the comments, even if your department doesn't require a C for Math 392, you might not want to grant a P for a student who got a D in Math 392 because that student might change majors to another major that does require a C for Math 392.
And that's the conundrum. I mean, who has to,
Yeah.
who has, you know, who's going to push that?
Yeah.
It's, I mean, clearly one side will,
But the math, you know, will not grant, you know, a P for a D, you know, because it's an exempt course, you know, and I think they require a minimum C. So therefore, you know, the student, you know, should leave it as a D then, you know.
You can't force the student to do that.
Well,
Kretschmer,
but then.
So, but Feridun, the P policy is done by our departments. The student applies to the advisor in your department. And if the advisor says a D is a passing grade for this course, it can be changed into a P. Your department has control of that.
But
and that's what we wanted.
But will the math department honor it?
No.
They are not involved in the process. You sign the, right? So your advisor signs the form and that goes to the registrar and the registrar will then put in the grade change. But as Professor Fenster said,
Okay.
if the student later on decides to switch to a math major and needs a minimum C in the math course, they will have to repeat that course.
Or a
Yeah.
computer engineering major.
Yeah.
Or computer, but I don't know which
Yes.
other program, but I
Yes.
assume
But wait a minute,
So I
there's
think, you
something-
know, in that case, they should be advised, you know, properly, you know, that's all I can say.
But what I would ask then is Professor Fisher to repeat that last statement that he meant in terms of students transferring out if you go for the D. Could you?
Yeah, the point is that if mechanical engineering doesn't require a C in Math 392, and a mechanical engineering advisor grants a student a P when they got a D in Math 392, then it's undermining if the student changes to the computer engineering major, because we did require a C, and now we can't tell that that student actually got a D. So it's really up to the advisor in mechanical engineering to, I hope, not grant it regardless, because it could undermine the student's future ability to progress.
Okay, next question. So you
So
can
another question for Professor Delali is, if a student gets a CR grade in ME 246, can't the student not take ME 247?
Let me check. I think it is required, no? Let me check the curriculum. 1 second. ME 247. Okay. Prerequisite ME 246 minimum C. So if they don't have a C, they cannot take it.
That is that an exempt course then? The
Yes, yes.
Okay.
No,
So okay.
247 is not an exempt course.
No. I'm talking about the prerequisite.
Yeah, 246 is an exempt course. Yes.
Okay. So that answers that
If they
question.
don't have, if they don't have, you know, a C in 246, they cannot take, you know, 247, the dynamics course.
Yeah, Professor Kretschmer?
but they can apply for a PNC policy for 246 And if they get a P, they should be able to take 247.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. So
But to
restate
get a
that.
P, they will need a C. Yeah.
Right. So to restate that for the student who asked the question, ME 246 is a course that you cannot choose credit, no credit for.
Right.
It's on the, anything that's on the exempt list, you cannot choose credit, no credit. Okay. If you want to make your grade go away, you can choose pass, no credit, but credit, no credit is not an option for anything on the exempt list.
Okay, I think, okay, yeah, we answered that one.
There's a question, does the credit affect being on a dean's list?
Well,
We're trying to help you.
Not really, because it's if you're on the dean's list, you stay on the dean's list as long as your GPA is what it is. I mean, it's so it won't make it go up, it won't make it go down. If you're not on the dean's list, it won't help you, and if you're on the dean's list, it won't hurt you, because the dean list is dictated by the GPA. Now, the other courses where you got actual grades in can help or hurt.
So if I got a grade of C in a course and want to retake it in the winter, is it better to do that with the F repeat policy or PRNC?
Get a C. The F repeat policy is only used if you fail the course. That doesn't apply if you pass the course. And anyone else can figure out, I mean, use it. Also, the deadline would probably be over even for the pass no credit if you wait until you take that course again, if I understood the question. Anyone else want to take a crack at that? Professor Kreshma?
No, so it sounds like the student may get a C this fall and then is wondering and wants to retake the course to get a better grade. So my suggestion would, if you have a C, apply the credit, no credit, or the PNC, depending on whether it's an exempt course.
Ah, okay.
And then you don't have to retake the course, or you can retake it if you want to.
Right.
On the topic of growth transfers, are students in CCNY still able to?
Oh, I'm sorry. We had
a
Professor Whittick. I didn't see you. Sorry.
I just wanted to point out that you should also check with financial aid, because financial aid doesn't necessarily let you repeat a course that you've gotten a passing grade in. So if it's important for you, because the information scaffolds, you want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I just really want to stress that this is what we mean, that these have these unforeseen consequences when you make these decisions. And so there are a lot of different moving parts here. If you're paying your way through, no problem. But if you have financial aid, you have visa, or you're some sort of special program, you have to really see what, if choosing the CRNC or the PNC, will have on those other entities, which we have no control over. And so we're trying our best to try to, thank you for that. That was a good catch.
So do we have time for a few more questions?
Yes.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
We got nowhere to go. No, I'm just kidding.
no, we have.
No, I'm just kidding. We're all home.
No, we have other meetings,
I know. I do too.
So one of the questions it has to do with transferring into Grove. Are students still able to transfer into Grove for next semester?
Yes, they can transfer in. They meet the admission criteria. Was it more in depth than that? I don't see the question.
That was
no, just that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, students are still being admitted. And the less questions that we have about CRs and Ps, at least I would say for my advisors and for my faculty, the better. But, we understand that if they are there, we are going to, do our very best to look at that as holistically as we can.
So another question is that came from earlier, but they were a little bit confused, is courses that are not shaded on the curriculum sheet, could any of them be on the pass no credit policy? Courses that do not have a minimum grade of C.
I think the better question, rather than saying was shaded, because I don't know what you're necessarily looking at, there are some courses that have a C requirement. And so those would be those exempted courses where you can use the P/NC. I would answer that question like that.
And the student should just be referred to the list online to see that those actual courses listed rather than look at the curriculum sheet for this purpose.
I would say yes.
Look at the curriculum sheet, but just read, just don't look at the shading. Just read whether it says C minimum.
Yeah.
Certainly all the courses in gray, shaded in gray,
Yeah.
have C minimum, but there are other courses in the engineering school that have C minimum that aren't necessarily shaded in gray, because C minimum is a prereq to move on to the next course. So please read the text carefully.
Yeah.
When will we know for sure, 100% sure, what would be the grading policy for the spring 2021?
We don't know.
Up to June.
It's really, we don't know because a lot of this is not only from the School of Engineering and from the college, but also from the university itself. And so it really depends on where we are with this pandemic and what are the responses of the chancellor and the folks from the chancellor's office, as well as from the provost's office here at the college. So, you know, once again, there are a lot of people that are involved in this, and that's one of the reasons why it's very challenging, as well as government offices. You know, we talk about financial aid, what impact does these things have? And so it's a very complicated sort of situation that boils down to impacting your lives. And so we're here to try to do our very best to help navigate you through this. And, you know, just really want to thank everyone for their help in this. Professor Kretschmer and Professor Wittig.
So Beth, were you following up on Dean Walters? No. So there was one comment or one question of what if a professor submits grade late? What will happen then? That might be my... I think the deadline is still 24th of December to 12th of January, but you can only apply for any grade changes when your grade has been posted. I think that's
Well, I think what will happen, I think our chairs will do their very best to encourage our faculty to submit those grades on time, which they do every year. And if they're late, we'll do our very best, meaning the Office of Academic Affairs, to really try to make sure as best we can that it doesn't impact the students. Because actually the registrar who is part of this process will know. In fact, he sends out a memo. Professor Wittig?
I just wanted to say that, you know, I think for most students, it would be really beneficial to keep your letter grade unless it's really going to do you harm. The letter grade is used by employers, by your instructors, really to just understand how you're doing, especially if concerning would be employers. So this is meant to be like a security blanket or a little safety net if something went terribly wrong. I don't think any of us would advise students to choose these policies for all of their courses. Really kind of be selective. So there's also the fact that there's a lot of uncertainties, as you've heard for this hour, that, you know, we don't speak for the financial aid office or any of these other colleges or what have you. So, you know, make sure you're getting input from the people that can give you good advice on this before you make that decision.
I think that's well said and really appreciate that. Any other questions there?
The updated PNC form, is it one per course or is it like one form for all of the classes? And where can the student get that updated form?
I think that maybe we should put the form on our website, because there have been several forms that have gone out. And this has been one of our challenges, that there've been a lot of communications that's gone out that has sort of morphed and changed, you know, as people become to understand the policy a lot better, and then also can take into consideration the feedback that we get from students like you. In fact, you know, the first thing I want to thank our students, because some of the questions you brought up have really been very helpful for us to sort of think about the ramifications of this and how best to sort of handle that. And so with regards to the actual form, I think we should put it on our website, or check with your advisor to use the actual form that we're going to be using in the School of Engineering.
Again, the question was that, is the deadline January the 12th? So the deadline is January the 12th, but what we emphasize is that as soon as students know what decision they're going to be making, they should submit the forms to the advisor and do not wait. January the 12th. They shouldn't wait until January the 12th to submit their forms, even though that's the deadline. They should submit it a little bit earlier. That will give the advisor time to look into the forms and their transcript to make an informed decision with the student, as well as for those departments that it has to go on to the chair will have enough time to look over that, that form and the decision. and would be able to be communicate that to the registrar's office by January the 12th. So don't wait until January the 12th to actually outreach to your advisor and submit the form. Is there a list of PNC classes only? And are they implied on the link of CRNC excluded? So the list of PNC classes are the list of excluded courses from the CRNC policy. So once you see the list of the CRNC courses, those courses that are excluded from the CRNC policy, those are the courses that the student will be able to apply the PNC grading policy on. What if a professor submits grade late? Tomorrow is the due date to submit grades. I think we already covered that. On grades in CUNY first, I'm not showing right now, so. Okay, so grades, professors are still submitting grades at this point in time. So hopefully by the end of this month, all of the grades, or 90-something% of the grades, would be submitted by the professors. So you shouldn't be worried if the grades are not submitted today, but you can look back into the system maybe towards the end of this week and beginning of next week to see if your grade has been posted for all of your classes. So the student said, I never do the CRNC policy before, but with accepting, it means all the courses in this semester would be CRNC, or only the selected courses would be CRNC policy?
Only selected courses that are not exempt.
So one question for Professor Delali, is ME 330 a C minimum course?
No, but it has a prerequisite, you know, which has a C minimum, or prerequisites that have C minimum. Itself, it's not a C minimum course.
Let's say I get a CR grade in this semester, but planning to retake the same class. Is my grade going to change if I wanted to?
Ardi?
Wait a minute, I didn't hear that. Actually, I was reading one of the other questions.
This is like repeat, you know. So if
What
a
was the
student,
question?
you know,
Let's say I got a CR grade in this semester, but planning to retake the same class. Is my grade going to change if I want to?
Professor Kretschmar, go ahead.
If you take the course a second time, the course will show up twice, and then the second time, if you don't apply a CR credit, no credit option, you will get that grade, but it will just show up a second time. So you can't change your fall grade by taking it in the spring.
yeah.
I think that's the question that they're asking, but I'm not sure.
Professor Fenster?
I think most departments don't allow a student to retake a course if they've already passed it.
Right, that is absolutely correct. But the other thing too is that, so the students know, there's a misconception, even with the F repeat policy that comes up, the student says, well, I get an F, I take it again, will the new grade replace my old one? And the answer to the question is no. All those courses stay on your transcript, and even the F stays there. What the registrar does is put a pound sign next to it to show that it's not calculated in your GPA. But whatever you take, and this goes to the graduate student, says, if I take 33 credits, will all those count towards my GPA? Absolutely, you know, and you shouldn't be taking 33, but if you did, and you messed up on that last course, that can actually stop you from graduating, even if you were in good academic standing with the 30 before that satisfy the requirement for the degree. It all counts. The registrar doesn't have the luxury of selecting and choosing what's on the transcript. And just so that you know that that gets audited, and that becomes a state thing. It becomes a legal issue. So it's not like, you know, you have a roll book and then you can just kind of decide what you want on it. It is a legal document that records everything that you take. But we're going to have to wrap this up. I think our time is kind of running out. I just want to let students know that, one, this is being recorded. We're going to post it. And two, you can also follow with questions via email. And we'll turn over to Dr. Kretschmar for a moment. Yes.
So there was a question, the last question is regarding whether these policies are reversible, and only the credit, no credit is reversible. The P and C is not reversible. As
That
far
is
as we've been
absolutely correct.
told.
Once you choose that, it is done. You put a bow on it. Yeah, they were pretty animated. And once again, this, and let me just give you just context with the P/NC. This came out of the College of Liberal Arts and Science, where students in the College of Liberal Arts and Science can decide to choose a course, but they have to do it before they take the course. to take it pass, fail. And once they made that decision and they took the course, if they thought they were going to get an A, they could not at the end. And so this is a theme and variation on that, so that you know. So once you choose the pass, no credit in that same sort of way, you can no longer change it. It is done. So I just want to give our cheers. Any last words to our students, words of encouragement or advice, and then over to our dean, and then any of our cheers.
Be careful, and thoughtful, when you make your decisions.
Okay, cool. Our assistant dean, any last words? Dean Bahari?
Where'd you go?
I don't know, he vanished. Okay, then our Dean Kouzes.
So the only thing I would add is seek information, seek advice, make this a calculated decision and an informed decision.
Yes.
It's an engineering process. So get all the data before you make the decision. Okay, we are here to help you. We are here to have you succeed. And we do dearly care about your ability to succeed and your ability to do well down the line. And this is why we will spend time with you. There was a question, is there any more office hours? Send emails, contact the people, your advisors, your department chairs, your professors. You will get the answer. And if you don't, repeat again. Be insistent. Mitch?
Professor
Yeah,
Shaffer?
I want to just second what everybody said about being thoughtful. Last spring, we had students who were very high performers, who were worried about their GPA, who were asking whether they should change a B into a credit, and so be very thoughtful about that, because anybody who's looking at your graduate school application, employment application, medical school application, whatever it is you do once you go on from here, they don't want to see everything change to credit, no credit. I think so be thoughtful about it. Please email us or email your advisors, department advisors, have a discussion about this. If you're thinking about it already, just email us now before the Christmas holiday starts, so we have a little time to discuss, or just realize that, we also have some time to discuss it afterwards. But exactly what Professor Jalali said, be thoughtful.
Dean Bahari, we lost you for a moment there. Do you want to say some parting words?
So we will have the information that we have discussed today in more concrete language on the website for Grove, as well as we will send correspondence to the student body in terms of the process. But we'd like to just say, to conclude in terms of, for my parting, is that we want to wish you a happy holiday. We know that this has been a very difficult year for most of you all, and we are understanding of it. And that's one of the reasons why we have this grading policy in progress. And we just want to say we wish you the very best for the new year.
And before letting our dean close us out altogether here, I do want to give a shout out to Julissa Aquino and to Annette Pineda for making this possible. We really appreciate their help. I do want to just impress upon our students how much your faculty, your chairs, your program directors, your advisors, the support staff, the deans, all really care about you and want to see you do well. We want to wish each and every one of you a wonderful holiday, and to be safe and to take care of each other as you've been doing, and keep it going. And so I'll pass it over to our dean to close us out.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming and listening to the information. Thanks to all the department chairs and the deans for answering everybody's questions. I wish you all a happy holiday, a happy new year, continued success, and most important, stay safe and stay healthy. And we will see you next semester.
So happy holidays, everyone.